During this exceptionally challenging period, African American communities are facing multiple pandemics, resulting in considerable challenges for both established businesses and budding entrepreneurs. The Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference is addressing these challenges by hosting our 18th and first fully virtual conference, offering the opportunity to expand your business's visibility, market reach, and ability to thrive during these exceptional times. In this virtual space, our impact is greater and even more powerful. The Umoja Marketplace Exhibitor Package includes immediate exposure through February 28, 2021, private online customization room to showcase products and services, self-designed exhibitor page, add your logo, information, links, and videos, 24/7 access for clients and scheduling, opportunity for vendor-based presentations, request information button, page visitor analytics, and professional technical assistance. We are expecting over 2,000 conference attendees and 12,000 visitors, including seminarian, HBCU student, global, and congregational engagement. As a non-governmental organization and NGO, we reach thousands of persons of faith and goodwill, and our voice is even present at the United Nations. Become an exhibitor today. Visit our website, sdpconference.info.
Celebrate Kwanzaa virtually with us every night, December the 26th to January the 1st, as we will have one service each evening, starting at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, and 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, in honor of the principles of the day.
What's happening, Proctor family? I have a big question for you. Have you registered to attend the 2021 Proctor Annual Conference yet? If not, now is your time to purchase your ticket before the first ever virtual annual convening. And why now? Because we want you to catch the December 31st deadline before ticket prices increase. We want to save you some money. For the remainder of the month, you can catch registration costs as low as $165 for general ticket admission, $135 for current seminary students, and as low as $110 for our sisters and brothers joining us from all across the globe. And on January 1st, all those prices are going to increase. If you have not purchased your ticket, we urge you right now to make your way over to our website, sdpconference.info. Secure your spot for the 2021 Proctor Annual Conference today, right now. We look forward to seeing you in our virtual conference space on February 22nd to 25th, 21.
Good evening, family. Welcome to the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference Kwanzaa Worship Celebration. Today is the 6th day of Kwanzaa, December 31st, and whether you are on Facebook, on YouTube, or any other social media outlet, we are so thankful to have you with us this evening. Habari gani? Kuumba. Today we celebrate the sixth principle of Kwanzaa, Kuumba, creativity. And tonight we light the Kanara by starting with the center, the black candle, Umoja, representing unity. And then we move from the red to the green, from the outside in. And we light a red candle for Kujichagulia, self-determination. We relight a green candle for Ujima, collective work and responsibility. We relight a red candle for Ujamaa, cooperative economics. We relight a green candle for Nia, purpose. And finally, we light tonight the remaining red candle on the Kanara for Kuumba, creativity. And family, we also celebrate this night by hearing a sacred reflection from Reverend Trey Campbell. Reverend Campbell began his studies at Howard University and went on to earn his Master of Divinity from the Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology at Virginia Union. Reverend Campbell is an associate minister at the Zion Baptist Church of Washington, D.C. He is a campus chaplain at the University of the District of Columbia. We are in for a treat this evening. Habari gani, Kuumba, Amen, and Ashe.
From the New Living Translation, Ecclesiastes 4 reads, Again I observed all the oppression that takes place under the sun. I saw the tears of the oppressed, with no one to comfort them. The oppressors have great power, and their victims are helpless. So I concluded that the dead are better off than the living. But most fortunate of all are those who are not yet born, for they have not seen all the evil that is done under the sun. Then I observed that most people are motivated to success because they envy their neighbors. But this too is meaningless, like chasing the wind. Fools fold their idle hands, leading them to ruin. And yet, better to have one handful with quietness than two handfuls with hard work and chasing the wind. I observed yet another example of something meaningless under the sun. This is the case of one who is all alone, without child or brother or sister, cousin or nephew, yet who works hard to gain as much wealth as one can. Then ask him or herself, who am I working for? Why am I giving up so much pleasure now? It is all so meaningless and depressing. Two people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person fails, the other can reach out and help. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble. Likewise, two people lying close together can keep each other warm. But how can one be warm alone? A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated. But two can stand back to back and conquer. Three are even better. For a triple braided cord is not easily broken. So in this ritual, family, we take up the strands that contain our sorrow and we move. We move through the unexpected chaos. We move of strength. We take up the strands and we move We move through with the move of courage. So we take up the strands and we move. We move through, never ignoring, nor straining. We move through because moving is the resilience. Moving is the act of justice in our lament. With the strands of wisdom, strength, and courage as our triple braided cord. Strength, courage, and wisdom is our triple braided cord. Strength to love, courage to take risks loving, and the wisdom to know that the only love strong enough to hold our lament is our Creator. So family, keep on moving.
On the sixth day of Kwanzaa, it is the day of creativity. And I want to challenge each and every one of you to be creative in how we give back to our communities, but especially in how we give to this organization, the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference. I challenge you to be creative with your amongst your friends and your community to say, hey, if I give, you give too. That's why I'm challenging my friend Jamar Boyd and Reverend Dontavius Drake to give when I give, so that we may be able to have organizations last forever. And so you're asking, how do I give? Well, you give by going either on Givelify and searching for the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference, or sdpconference.info/invest and contribute. And if you want to get funky with it, why don't you put the theme of the day, Kuumba? Remember, this is the last day of the year, and we would really love your help. Habari Gani, Kuumba.
Great is thy faithfulness, O God my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not, thy compassions, they fail not. For as thou hast been, thou forever will be. Summer and winter, there's springtime and harvest. The sun, moon, and stars in their courses above, they join with all nature in manifold witness. And it's to thy great faithfulness, your mercy and love, great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thou hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Pardon for sin and a peace that endureth, thine own dear presence to cheer and to guide, strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. Blessings are mine with 10,000 beside. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. Every time I wake up in the morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thou hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Amen.
It is my joy and honor to have been assigned the sixth principle of Kwanzaa, Kuumba, which means creativity. And I want to connect this with a text from Nehemiah that has struck my heart. Nehemiah chapter 2, verses 3 through 5, and it reads thusly. But I said to the king, may the king live forever. Why should my face not look sad when the city where my ancestors are buried lies in ruins, and its gates have been destroyed by fire? And the king said to me, what is it you want? And then I prayed to the God of heaven, and I answered the king, if it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city in Judah where my ancestors are buried so that I can rebuild it. For a few minutes, I want to think through this idea, this thought, this title, Rebuking the Bare Minimum. But I said to the king, why should my face not look sad? I got to be honest, it's Nehemiah's pessimism here for me. Sadness so deep and so rooted that the king could only describe it as a grief that can only be of the heart. And I'm not sure why this struck me in the way that it has. Maybe it's Nehemiah's willingness to hold space for sadness, even if it disrupted others' comfort. Maybe it's the choice to refuse to express an optimistic disposition. But regardless of the why, I respect this part of Nehemiah's story. It's something about authentic expression that does it for me. His home laid in ruins. His people were hurt. Violence had been committed. And for him, this could be no time to turn a blind eye to the atrocities in his city. Because see, for him, his eyes were on his people. And because his eyes were on his people, all he could do was express truth as he conversed with power. Why should my face not look sad when the city where my ancestors are is buried and lies in ruins and its gates have been destroyed by fire? And what makes this even more noteworthy for me is that some may struggle with this candid disposition and deem it as ungrateful. Because while Nehemiah had made it, he had followed the prescribed societal script. He had risen up the social ladder. He had a position on the king's cabinet. He was trusted. He was respected. I'm sure that he had obtained all the necessary degrees, was probably invited to all the big social gatherings, rubbed shoulders with power, and was the goals of excellence for many. How dare he care so intensely when he had it all? And this is exactly why I found myself stuck with Nehemiah's sadness, because it was more than an emotional feeling. He embodied it. It was unavoidable. He let it be seen. And I like to think that Nehemiah understood that if his people were suffering, if his people were hurt, that he was suffering, he was hurt. And that maybe he expressed sorrow that day because while all of his accomplishments have been viewed as significant and admirable, he knew it meant little to be a symbolic representational figure as his people, his homeland laid in ruins. Perhaps he cried because yes, he may have made some history, but that was all for naught if he did not see the present conditions of his people. He cried because he knew where he was not the apex. It could not be, because he knew this could not be the mountaintop. This could be no mountaintop. If he was at the top and his people were suffering, no. It was the opposite. It was the bare minimum for Nehemiah. That's what gets me. And I just believe it was this honest portrayal of grief, this expression of truth, that Nehemiah recognizes these conditions as the bare minimum, that this wasn't it, that he didn't come this far just to come this far. But what makes this story so profound is that not only out of Nehemiah's sadness does he recognize the minimum, but he chooses to rebuke the bare minimum. And why does he choose to rebuke the bare minimum? He chooses to go and help rebuild. He chooses to create. He chooses to create, to reestablish not just physical structures, but to restore the spiritual infrastructure and the spiritual force of his community. Nehemiah, sisters and brothers, enfleshed Kuumba because he understood he had to always do as much as he could in the way that he could in order to leave his community more beautiful and more beneficial than he had inherited it. And I just believe, and I want to suggest that it was the pessimism, it was the sadness that served as a catalyst for Nehemiah, because Nehemiah could have easily ignored what was happening back home and enjoyed the fruits of his labor as he had ascended further in life. He could have settled in his notoriety, settled in his prestige, settled in his acclaim as a member of the highest court in the land. But I believe that it was this sadness that was a result of an honesty of the soul that suggested to him that no matter how high I may rise up, no matter how far I may advance, if my people are suffering, if back home is suffering, then I'm suffering. And it helped him see the material reality of his people even clearer. He had to be authentic. And it was a surreal authenticity that was grounded in home, that saw beyond what could be deemed a rational decision to stay. But Nehemiah saw that he didn't need to just have joy right now, but he needed to be real about this moment, that he needed to recognize that his ancestors' home was in ruins. And I want to say to us that sometimes it's all right not to have black joy. It's okay to look at our nation and be sad and say everything's not all right and ask questions. Because I do. I want to know why 1% of this country hoards most of this wealth while 99% of the nation fights over scraps. I want to know why we continue to fund defense budgets at astronomical rates and social services are always a second thought. I want to know why we continue to have inequities and inequalities exist in our education system. I believe it's okay to feel away, because when we feel, we respond with creation. Because even God was not satisfied with what was, and God created, and we must create, and we must always, every day, wake up and rebuke the bare minimum. With every 24 hours that we have, we must rebuke the bare minimum. And I believe our creativity is our fight. Our creation, our art is how we continue to thrive despite the constant threat of this dehumanizing capitalistic project called America. And the reality is we have created some of the world's greatest parties, some of the world's greatest music. We have created some of the greatest intellectual and brilliant minds this world have ever seen. We have created new ways of making art, through fashion, through photography. We have created things that have astonished this world. We have created Haitian revolutions. We've created boycotts that have brought bus systems to its knees. We have created through the words of Morrison, through the sacks of Coltrane, through the fight of Ida, through the sermons of Joanna, through the brushstrokes of Lawrence and the ideas of Du Bois. But we have created in the midst of a world that has tried to kill us at every turn, and we must be honest about that. We have created while fighting against state lynchings, and we must be honest about that. We have created out of subhuman conditions. But to be creative is to be human. It is more than that. It is to be in sync with the divine, and this is how we be despite the subhuman treatment, because to be creative is to resist its functions, is to bring life against death. And that's why we can't stop being creative, because we can't stop fighting. We can't stop resisting, because there are worlds beyond this violent state. And we must partner with the divine to create these better worlds, to create the worlds that God has intended to create, to is abolish. It is to say no to the status quo of white imperialism. And even as we celebrate Kwanzaa today, as it was created in 1965, we must never forget that its creation is birthed out of a backdrop when a nation was supposed to be moving forward with the landmark of a civil rights bill. Yet just 2 years later, Malcolm is killed by the states, the Watts riots occur, and national unrest takes place. Even after this monumental moment, there is still chaos, and Karenga saw that truth, and Karenga created for us. It was a rebellious spirit, because whenever we create, we rebel to the current order, and this is why creativity is crucial, because for us, it is to venture beyond this system. It is to get rid of this system, because the system says we must innovate individually, we must compete, but we say we create, and when we create as a collective. Perhaps this is why Solange told us that we must be weary of the ways of the world, because the patterns of this world is harming us. And maybe this is why our ancestor Maya Angelou told us that we cannot unface history, because we must acknowledge history, and not just acknowledge history, but see how history is still working in it today. And that's why creativity helps us lessen the gap between who we are as a world and who we can become as a world. And creativity is our response, and it forces us to ask the question, will we tell the truth? Will we be honest? Will we create infrastructure and spaces that are entirely liberative? Or will we create spaces that are somewhat liberated but not really liberated? Will we create self-help spaces that teach us to win? Or will we still leave intact systems that diagnose us as a problem? We must always locate ourselves back home and ask the question, how is home doing? And I believe that's what Nehemiah says. How is home doing? As he tells the king, why should my face not look sad when the city where my ancestors are buried has been destroyed by fire? How can I be happy right now? How can I be happy when home is not doing well? And Nehemiah went back. He had to go back and reconnect to restore and build from their origins. And I believe this is what makes the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference so powerful, because we are building from our origins. We are in touch with a legacy that our African people birthed. We have gone back and we continue to ask the question, how are our people doing? How is home doing? And creation is this reconnection to our origin. It is the remembering of our dismembered parts. And we create not to just go against the norms. We are living in the best of who we already are. Creation is not meant to go against the grain for going against the grain's sake, but it is our aim to be authentic, and our authenticity is excellence. We are called to create beyond America, beyond Europe, beyond Western worldviews and conceptions, but from the essence of that flame that exists within inside of each of us. We create because, in the words of Dean Bernard Richardson, that before any human hands touched us, before any human voice spoke to us, there was a creator that molded and fashioned us, a creator that spoke in authenticity in each of us that we must all live into. And as I close, I got to admit, the death of our Black Panther, Chadwick Boseman, shook me to the core. And I often go back to his graduation speech at my alma mater, and his alma mater, Howard University. One that I think was his his hilltop speech. As you see him peering over to the other side, yet standing firmly on this side, reporting back to us, telling us to continue to fight and to struggle with our purpose, to continue to be who we've been called to be. And he tells the story of how he refused to accept the status quo at Hollywood, and how he challenged the executives one day who wanted him to exist in a caricature role, and how that role ended up losing his job. But what he realized was that he found another way, a way to be authentic. He found another way. Brothers and sisters, what I want to suggest to us is that that's where our optimism lies. Is that there is another way, a way that is outside of this death and this hurt and this pain. There is another way that God has created. There's another way beyond sexist and homophobic structures. There is another way that goes beyond capitalism and white supremacy. There is another way that goes beyond predatory corporations and state-sanctioned violence. There is another way, a way that is rooted in who we are, a way that is rooted in our creation and what we create. And let us push on faithfully to another way, to God's way. And we will create because we are Kuumba. God bless.